And then we move on to our second album, which is A Complicated Woman by Self Esteem. And we're back to you, Karl. It was your main selection. So what was your perspective on this one?
Yeah, so Complicated Woman is the third solo album from Rebecca Lucy Taylor, who started life as, one half of indie duo Slow Cub, before now becoming, this, in the last few years, this empowering alt pop icon. Yeah, just a great solo debut with Compliments Please. And then her last album, obviously Prioritize Pleasure, one of the most acclaimed albums of the 2020s so far, rightfully so. Just a dazzling, heartfelt, brutally honest pop record that I think just spoke to a lot of people, particularly young women. My partner being one of them, said that, what she says is that record just captured her inner monologue and gave her that comfort that she wasn't, the only one experiencing these thoughts and feelings. Obviously seemed to capture the Six Music dads as well, with this record. So yeah, but yeah, just a great, great album. And yeah, seen her live a couple of times since, included in April for the launch show for A Complicated Woman. And, when she played a couple of the tracks off, Prioritize Pleasure, it was one of those moments where you could just, it was a predominantly female crowd, and you could just really see the impact that album had on women of a certain age, and it was quite a beautiful thing to see. And yeah, obviously she comes back with this one, and I don't think like any artist who has had this, hugely successful, hugely acclaimed album, the difficulty is then how do you follow it up? Which at the live show, and in interviews that I've seen as well with Rebecca, promoting this album, she's made no bones about it that it was, the biggest challenge for her career. It's the hardest thing she's ever done. There's a track on here called What Now, which she mentioned at the show was originally called Now What? And it was kind of like, that was the starting point for this project where it's like, now what do I do? But yeah, she locked herself away in Margate, and has emerged from, that isolation with A Complicated Woman. And, it's powerful gut punches 1 minute. It's some laugh out loud moments the next. Sonically, it kind of doubles down on like the gospel infused pop of the previous two records. But this is the first time she's had access to like a full choir and an orchestra. So it's kind of more of the same. Everything she's done previously so well, but everything is kind of grander. It's a bit more theatrical. She obviously did the show on the London's West End to coincide with the album as well. So that probably gives another concept to the record that I've yet to experience. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just packed with some real high points. I Do and I Don't Care was a real. I was listening to it on the way to work the first time I heard it. It was a real like stopped me in my tracks moment. It's like this love letter to her younger self and, the woman that she's become. And there's that heartbreaking statement in it where she flips the mirror saying, what is it? We're not chasing happiness anymore, girls. We're chasing nothing. The great big still, the deep blue okay. And it's basically like this acceptance almost that, they're living in a man's world, sadly always will be. And the best that they can hope for is just to be, a part of it and survive in it. And for me, it was just a really devastating start. But then, I think the best thing that she could have done, she does, which is she immediately lifts everything back up with Focus is Power, which is, it was the lead single for the record. It's just this really joyous, like defiant anthem. And then from there, it's just all over the place. Mother, this tribal dance track. Get to see Rebecca's wit like coming through as she basically dissects, like different relationship dynamics, as only she can. The Curse is like the string tinged anthem that's about, it's like the confidence given to her from drinking, but also the problematic nature of drinking too much, which I think is again a really clever song. And then Logic Bitch is definitely one of my favorites here as well. Just this really stripped back, haunting piano ballads. Again, the gospel vocals, the strings. It's just goosebump inducing that song. So yeah, really strong first half. Some great moments in the second half as well. Continue the same sort of themes and styles. Moonchild Sonelli and Nadine Sharbo featuring too, which obviously a big fan of them. But then, yeah, the two that I want to mention in the back half for completely different reasons is 69 and the Deep Blue OK. I think I'll start with 69. I really enjoyed looking at the Album of the Year user reviews for this record because it's basically all these Americans just tearing themselves into 69. And I think in general, they just take it maybe much more seriously than it was intended. Like maybe not just understanding the British sense of humor, but it's basically just her listing all these different sexual positions and her preferences for them. And I think in an album with like so many like heavy moments, it's a bit of fun. It's a welcome bit of comic relief. But it will be one of those tracks that you either love it or you hate it. But yeah, and then she saves the best moment to last for me, which is the Deep Blue OK. Might be one of my favorite songs of the year so far. It's like a spiritual follow on from the opening track. Brings the record completely full circle. Probably my favorite Self Esteem song to date. Apparently, she wrote it in 10 minutes, which just blows my mind. But it's like just this hugely emotional like stream of consciousness just pouring out from her. Obviously, you got the clear shades of LCD Sound System's All My Friends, which again, like the influence of that song just continues to go on and on. That's obviously playing in the background through those piano chords. And yeah, just a hugely powerful song, deeply personal, but another one I think really resonates. And, it leaves you with that overriding message being, I might try today, which I think, leaves it on a positive note. So, yeah, apologies for going on there, but I feel like there's a lot to unpack in that record. It's going to be one of those that I'm probably still going to be stewing over in months to come. But I think overall, where I'm sitting on it, I'd say, without wanting to compare it to Prioritize Pleasure, but I will. I'd say pound for pound, track for the track, maybe not quite on that level, but I think certainly it's another album where there's not too many lows and there's some really high highs. Definitely one of my favorite pop records of the year so far. Beautifully arranged, beautifully written, and I can see where she can translate this to a theatre production, which obviously she has done as well. So yeah, it's one of those. I know she missed out to Little Sims last time around, but it's it's a really another strong record. It'll be interesting to see if she gets nominated for the Mercury Prize again, whether she can go one step further, but we'll have to wait and see. But great, great album.
Looking ahead to that already. So, Kylie, what did you make of A Complicated Woman?
Yeah, I've been dreading this for the last couple of weeks because I know how much Karl's been enjoying this record. And as someone that I love to prioritize pleasure too. If I remember right, I think it was in my top 50 in 2021. So I was very excited about this record too. But I'll take the other half of your long review, do a short review. I think this album is it's tedious, and when it's not tedious, it's forgettable. The piano ballads just don't do anything for me. And I think it's interesting, Karl, you mentioning like having the access to choirs and orchestras and stuff for the first time. And I think it's just kind of, she throws it all in the sandbox. And I just am not all that interested in what comes out. So I liked The Curse. I liked Cheers to Me. I'm on board with her message. I just I don't know. I guess like to come back to 69, which I think is the worst song of the year so far. Um, I don't think it's the humor is lost. I think it's just grating and it thinks it's cheekier than it really is. I don't know. Uh that's kind of how I feel about this whole album. So yeah, I mean it's you were Andrew, you were talking about the rare album that you just don't want to listen to, that you want to turn off, and like this was it for me this year so far, which it pains me saying. I will be back listening to the next record and hope that you know there's something that ties together again. It's so all over the place, and yeah, not for me.
So we've had the high and the low. I mean, I'm going to be in between on that front. Yeah, my first kind of touch point for the record was the album of the year, like figures. I was just scrolling on there. I wasn't looking for this in particular.
The critics.
The
and user
critics,
reviews.
it was about
It's
at the
crazy.
time I looked, it was about 81, and the users was like 46, and I was like, whoa.
It's like 37
Um,
now.
So it raised my kind of intrigue. Yeah, I, I suppose like self-esteem and kind of the kind of music she does is not naturally a fit for me, but Prioritize Pleasure really did, and that was through the Mercury Prize. That really did kind of carry through. It's one of my favorites that year. I can't. What was it? 2021. Then it must have been, or 20. Yeah. So yeah, that and put me on, and kind of justified all of the hype around her, not knowing anything about her career prior to that particular record. It's been a long time since it feels like a long time since that record. I think a lot's happened. So and that could be a tricky one when you have such a highly acclaimed record and then you take a long time to kind of follow it up. It's interesting you say that she was struggling to know what to do, and it's difficult when you kind of scale that peak. Do you kind of to go for some completely different direction or whatever? I think what you said, Karl, doubles down. That is what A Complicated Woman is for me, doubling down on what her USP is. So it's not unfamiliar territory. I can't say that I was really anticipating this one. As much as I loved Prioritize Pleasure, I didn't feel like I really wanted to get into a new Self Esteem project. And probably having seen that glimpse of the scores, I thought, what have we got here? My first listener was a bit like, do find it a bit jarring, and then I gave it a few more listens to just obviously park what other people think. What do I think of this? And it really grew on me. If anything, it's too big. Like it's so like every song is like a massive statement that I think as a album, I find it almost too much to kind of handle, and it's not one I can eat. Like I find is an easy listen just to stick on whilst I'm doing whatever. But I grew to actually really appreciate, the second taste of her as an artist, and yeah, I think there's some great moments. It really reminded me actually of Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, which is ironic actually, I suppose, in considering she lost out to her back then for the Mercury Prize. But that kind of really go for that epic arrangements. There's a very gospel, big gospel influence across a lot of these tracks as well, and there's quite a lot of variety as well, which I think doesn't do too badly here. I Do and I Don't Care is probably my favourite on it in total. Even though I find the lyrics so depressing. But if it's You Believe the Two, Karl, it's just like really. So I'm kind of glad when you do get to the Deep Blue OK and it's kind of less kind of I don't know, defeatist almost in a way, because as uplifting as the song is, that opener, like it is almost defeatist, and that is a message being shared, and she's someone who is revered and who is listened to, and as you say, with the crowd you were with, you know, so many, you know, maybe women in particular really take on the message. So if the message is, you know, okay is the best you can get, girls, that is but you know, she's nothing if not honest, and she's really, you know, she sticks to her guns, and you can only admire that. Whether it's the stuff I always want to listen to is kind of another matter, but there are some really strong moments here. I mean, Focus is Power. Also enjoyed Logic Bitch. Apart from the outro, absolutely hated that. This blooming, like, what was it, Sue Tompkins gets given a credit for this, and it's just like, like, I hate that. because that, as you say, Karl, really lovely song, that one. You know, really somber. It's just, you know, there's an emotional heft to it. And then you have this like really childish bit at the end, which just, I thought, what are you doing? But anyway, The Curse, and yeah, the Deep Blue OK. And then What Now, actually. Really thought that was a great track, just to allow Taylor's vocals to just take the lead, because if anything, sometimes she's hiding it with whatever the production, for some of the maybe more electronic songs, you don't get that as much, but I suppose it just gives a bit more variety. But then that variety I'm probably not as liking as much. You know, Mother I didn't like as much. 69 I think is kind of catchy. You know, I listen to it and think, yeah, that's got to do well on TikTok or whatever. It's just funny, you know, listening to it and seeing what she said about it, where she was like, she thought that it was something quite empowering about listing, you know, and talking about like sex so openly and stuff, which kind of seems at the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of the take we have, that it's kind of a cheeky song, something just to be so. Yeah, does make me laugh sometimes, like the kind of meaning versus like how it's received, but really no pun intended. So yeah, a strange.
That was better than the entire song.
Why, thank you. So yeah, strange cameo from Nadine Shah. That's really, like, I don't think you'll ever hear Nadine Shah on such a track. Actually, that's kind of like a hyper pop one, but yeah, and I quite liked what Moonchild Sonelli does in that In Plain Sight song. But yeah, overall, yeah, I agree too. So in summary, from a kind of bad start and kind of a bad perception as well, into one where when I do give Self Esteem the time of day, it's good. and I really admire her as an artist, and I think this is a strong record. Not as strong as Prioritise Pleasure, and I think there's a bit of a gap. But this is one which, you know, pop, as you know from before, it's not my top genre or whatever, but I think I struggle to find too many better pop records this year. So there we go.